Becky, June, and everybody. Yeah. Okay, it's a time. So I would like to invite today's facilitator, Reverend Dr. Chris Ferguson, the General Secretary of the World Communion of Reformed Church. He will facilitate today's webinar. Dr. Chris?
Yes, hearty welcome to everyone to this, the second in our series of important webinars, discerning transformational ecumenism in a pandemic-stricken world. I understand that we will begin our session today with prayer and invite our colleague to lead us in our opening devotion.
Chris, you can read the facilitator's part.
We gather our creator God as creator God to worship and praise you. From different parts of the world, we are continually discerning the transformative ecumenism in a pandemic-stricken world. Guide us all and give wisdom to our speaker so that we will be more informed on what must be done. Are all of you coming gathered with a similar expectation?
We are here
offering the pieces of our work
and our commitment to further energize the church constituency and awaken the local bodies. Help us empower each other in the name of the liberating act of Christ. Protect us from all forms of evils. Amen.
Yes, as we begin, allow me to give a brief introduction for those that are joining us for the first time today to the sponsors of this important and historical webinar. First is the Transformative Ecumenism Collective, an informal network of theologians, ecumenists, and public intellectuals from different parts of the world. These partners have been engaged in a series of conversations since 2012, in fact, attempting to reimagine ecumenism for the 21st century, one that would be prophetic, people-based, and free of institutional and organizational constraints. The second sponsor is the Korean Institute for Future Ecumenism, KIFE, established in 2011. KIFE is an initiative of some concerned Christian leaders committed to the cause of promoting ecumenism as an instrument of social change in Korea and beyond. The TEE Collective and KIFE have together organized 4 international colloquia since 2012 in Korea, the Philippines, Tanzania, and Japan. Issues of life and people, especially those who are marginalized, the moral challenges of our time, and the vision of a just, inclusive, and sustainable Earth community have been the focal points of these conversations. The World Communion of Reformed Churches, the organization that I am privileged to represent, joins this collective as a co-sponsor of this particular series of webinars. The accent on ecumenism is motivated by awareness of the manifold struggles for justice, peace, and rights, and the integrity of creation in many parts of the world. We have explored ways in which Christian faith expressions can accompany these processes towards a future that grants life with dignity for all. And of course, these resources are available through the KIFE office. Against the backdrop of these reflections and themes comes the content for this series of webinars formulated in response to the distinct challenges posed by the COVID-19 global pandemic. Despite all the negatives, it may perhaps be helpful if we view the pandemic as an opportune moment for Christians and churches to rediscover themselves and their vocation afresh. We hope that these webinars inspire and assist the process of such reimagination of ecumenism, both as an alternative vision and as a vocation of nurturing a culture of life. We understand this to be a moment of deep and profound discernment, and we welcome all of you to joining us in this ongoing journey of exploration for new meanings and new possibilities of creative engagement in the world today. It's my particular pleasure to say that in this journey of discernment, we have been able to attract members of our own community, as well as those beyond our circle, to lead us in this discernment. And today, addressing the theme of economy of life instead of the worship of Mammon, we are particularly honored and privileged to have as our speaker, Dr. Rogate Mashana. And I must say that for many of us, Rogate will not only need no introduction, but profoundly is a person who we know to have been an ecumenical leader, a professional academic and economist that has in fact led the very ecumenical movement itself in the articulation, analysis, and vision of what is required in face of a death-dealing economy, empire, and social system which has designed for the oppression of the many to the benefit of the very few. As I mentioned, Dr. Mashana comes with him the highest credentials, trained with his PhD in economics, based on a background, a solid background of development and research studies. He has exercised his vocation professionally, both within the Christian Council of Tanzania, working with development issues and bringing profound leadership within that context, within programs for young people and within the rural areas. Further, that has become an important leader in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Tanzania. And also, after his own doctoral studies, provided leadership as the Deputy General Secretary for Planning and Development of his church. Needless to say, many important practical impactful projects have prospered in his church under his leadership, where we see the combination of not only a vision of economy, but a theological awareness and biblical reflection combined with a prophetic view of the analysis of the economic systems that have to be transformed and changed. I must say that my own understanding of Dr. Mashana's profound leadership and wisdom mirrors the time when we worked together and in the context of the World Council of Churches, where as both a program executive and as a director and leading as a Deputy General Secretary, Dr. Mashana has really set the tone for in-depth focus on ecumenical engagement, not only with the primary instance of those institutions that defend and support the current economic interests, the International Monetary Fund, the World Trade Organization, the World Bank, and so on. But Rogati has been part of the most significant and leading the most significant reflection and policy development and mobilization of the ecumenical community on issues ranging from ecological debt to the abolition of debt and deep in the vision of constructing new instruments to promote an economy of life, part of his own theme here. He has traveled extensively throughout the world, has accompanied projects of economic transformation and change with churches and in strong relationship with social movements, and has, after leaving the World Council of Churches in a leadership role, continues as a consultant to give depth and breadth of leadership through his organization called Eco Life Center, as well as consulting with groups like the Council for World Mission and many others, and continuing to accompany the All Africa Conference of Churches, ECLOF Tanzania, and in many other instances of evaluation, accompaniment, and visionary leadership. I must say that on top of all this extraordinary leadership, we also have the benefit of Dr. Mashana's many publications, and that he will elaborate for us this framework that he has been so important in developing. I must say, as I say, that few people come to us so well prepared, both from the theological and from the economic perspective, to chart the course for what in this troubling time must be a totally new approach to economics and a transformed vision of what it means to have an economy of life. So without further ado, I would invite Dr. Mashana to lead us in his reflection, and give him the warmest greetings and thank him for the benefit of his time and vision today.
Oh, thank you very much, Chris. You have quite done a lot of my introduction there. I wish I could just tell you to tell the participants in just one sentence, but thank you very much for that. I want to share with you now on the screen. I wanted to go up there. I wanted to start from the beginning because okay. Those who are good at starting things, they can help me here. Okay. Okay. First of all, this presentation is out to provide a critique of the current global social, political, and economic system as driven by the spirit of Mammon. How do you move this thing up here? I can't read you. Yeah. And then I want to, after giving that critique of the spirit of Mammon, I want then to speak about how we can speak about the alternatives part. What is Mammon? And we have heard quite a number of this word, the Mammon in the New Testament of the Bible, is commonly thought to mean money, material wealth, or any entity that promises wealth and associated with the greedy pursuit of gain. The Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Luke both quote Jesus using the word in a phrase often rendered in English as "you cannot serve both God and Mammon." So what we see is that Mammon carries a very negative connotation in the Bible. It is a demon who, according to Christian theology, embodies one of the cardinal sins, greed. Mammon is not money, but the spirit behind the love for money. And I remember when we were working with the World Council of Churches, we studied greed and even produced a book called Greed Line, which you can read there. That is actually studying the spirit of greed, which is in the area of Mammon. This demon's monstrous greed is so powerful that innocent people can be sucked into it and corrupted, so that they too focus their attention on building up worldly treasure instead of virtues that they can carry with them to heaven. So what or who is Mammon? And Mammon is the god of money, father of fiscality, demon of commercial greed, and the matrix of acquisitive and philosophical materialism, and the mother of all isms. As an archetype, Mammon manifests a spiritual being whose thoughts infect human consciousness and conscience. It is systemic. You can see that even the way we are fascinated when we read the Forbes list of the rich people in the world. People want to become billionaires until later on trillionaires, like they're expecting the Amazon CEO to become a trillionaire one day. That is the fascination. But where did the origin of Mammon get articulated? It began with a concern with the property and the beginning of use of money, not in form of coins that time, but was in forms of silver before 8th century before Christ era. Money arose from bartering and became the means of increasing property. But it was Aristotle and Plato who distinguished the two types of economy. The first part of the economy was supplying households and the broader community, what he called the polis, with the goods needed to satisfy basic needs, or economique. The other used to increase monetary property for its own sake, kapiliki, buying and selling part of the artificial form of acquisition, which was the beginning of charismatic. And this one is actually today's speculation, actually. We started already that time, human beings have already invented this aspect. Aristotle, linking up with Plato, cited a human desire, epithemia, in the they call it crematistic economic form. And that is where you have the speculum. That's where you have this, you buy things for the future, the profits you put into the future, and you already start to prophesy you are going to get more. So you buy things before you even have them. The boundless accumulation of money creates the illusion in the individual person of accumulating infinite means of sustenance, a means of pleasure, and thereby living forever. So this means that the striving for more property provided by monetary mechanism is based on the desire, transcending the individual desire object for internal life. Chasing after this illusion, the individual destroys community because you are involved in yourself and you don't think about others. As a solution, already Aristotle suggested that time, first to have an ethical education, to understand that this is not a good thing. And then political prohibitions. Today we talk about, we have been crying all the time about regulations, setting regulations for speculation, for, making the whole world just go on and deregulating financial markets, etc. Already by that time, many years ago, they found the problem. What is then is the current Mammon we have today? Property economy was originally egalitarian, but through the creditor-debtor mechanism within society, it inevitably brought forth inequality. Debtors who could not pay their interest and loans lost their lands, and creditors accumulated more land. And that started over years, many years, that those who were debtors, they kept on losing their lands. You remember when we were reading even the story of the Bible about Joseph in Egypt, people started losing their land during that time as they were they are borrowing from the Pharaoh and other things. Today, the property economy is based on the desire to have more of it through money, credit, and interests. Financialization of the economy is now the norm to create phantom wealth. So we shall see later that we have created what we call a planet finance, where everything now is speculated and is given a virtual digital money and other things, and we create wealth which is actually not there. But we have created institutions that run that type of wealth. And you can see how the world look like now, where we have about 800, what we call the inverted pyramid of global liquidity, that is money. 802% of world GDP is just on these papers called derivatives and promises, securitized debt. And then you have as you go down, you have now the real economy of the broad money, and then you have the powerful money down there. So the money we have actually in our pockets right now is just 1% of the liquidity. The rest are actually money designed to create an illusion for you. And therefore it has detached itself from the real economy. So Mammon today is capitalism, so to say. And capitalism is actually a word that comes from capital. And the way capital is actually, capitalism is the management of capital, you can call it. And you can either manage it as a state or a private capital. This is why what we call communism was actually state capitalism. No, that wasn't really communism as such. So neoliberal global capitalism aims at the boundless accumulation of capital, and thus is indirectly programmed to destroy life and thereby its own support systems. And then artificial intelligence today has also, the artificial intelligence today has also actually speeded up the creation of labor to capital. And therefore, soon you shall have machines working, and they say by 250, about 50-50 people working with robots, 50% working with robots and 50 working with ordinary human beings. And that is speeding up growth of capital. The systems of production, consumption, and distribution of resources at the moment do not sustain the planet because of this system we have embarked on. So it has also created inequality, which is, I call inequality is a fruit of Mammon. And the inequality drives poverty. The World Bank has also realized this. Inequality undermines social cohesion and contribution to political instability and violence. And when this happens, this is when we hear a lot of reparations and autocrats crushing people when they are actually already deprived of these resources. Inequality is abuse of power. And the super rich are not just benign recipients of the increasing concentration of wealth. They are actively perpetuating it, according to the Oxfam analyzing the whole world of Mammon now today. Why capitalism is Mammon? Capitalism economic system is driven by the law of value, which operates according to a rationality that abstracts the concrete and bodily life of human beings and other living beings that make up the environment and turns everything into factors of calculation of cost X benefit. So anything you look, even if you look at the environment, the eyes of a capitalist, they don't see a river. They see a street for ships, for carrying on transport. For everything they look money. And if something is not costly, they say, why is this place vacant here? Why do you have what you call a place for resting or a national park? These places should be invested according to a capitalist. The human being, whether worker or capitalist, is stripped of his or her humanity and transformed in an instrument to increase economic growth and wealth accumulation, become part of a structural grid to serve Mammon. So become homo economicus. We are not any more human beings as such, but we are because we have. And we shall be because we shall have more. And the more we have, the more we are human. Now that is very dangerous belief, the spiritual part of Mammon, we call it today. So then the Mammon of today is that pre-COVID Mammon economy, poverty and hunger stalked around 800 million people. More than 170 million people were out of work, and 3.3 billion people experienced a lack of material well-being despite holding jobs. Inequality within countries continues to be on this uptrend. Billionaires owned as much wealth as 4.6 billion people, or 60% of the world population. Capital flows continue to flow towards speculative activities and financial assets like the one we mentioned before. Debts include individuals and national were rising, and 40% of low-income countries were facing a debt crisis. 265 million people could face hunger according to the World Food Program, and half a million could fall into poverty in 2020. More than 305 million jobs could be lost in 2020. From the start of the crisis till April, capital flew out of low and middle income countries to the tune of $100 billion. Debt in low and middle income countries now at all-time high, 191% of all of their combined GDPs, according to IMF. So the Mammon economy under COVID is worsening is actually worsening the life of the people around the world. So when the ecumenical people also met in Sao Paulo, World Council of Churches, World Communion of Reformed Churches, Council for World Mission, Lutheran World Federation, came with this statement: we lament the manner in which economic financial legislation and controls are biased in favor of the wealthy. Call for a system of just legislation and controls that facilitate the redistribution of wealth and power for all God's creation. So these ecumenical related people are crying and calling for a new system, another system. The World Social Forum, the same, and other movements around the world who are pro-economy of life. So you can see wealth of 62 riches rose at that time by 44%, while that wealth of the bottom dropped by 41%. This is how the whole thing works. The Mammon economy works that way. The money flies from the poor to the rich. 85% of wetlands are destroyed, and one third of all land and three quarters of fresh water are dedicated to agriculture. Animal to human diseases already cause an estimated 700,000 deaths each year. At least 1.7 million unidentified viruses of the type known to infect people are believed to exist in animals and birds. So we are entering another place where, because of our growth, we don't care about the ecosystem. We are creating new viruses and new diseases for which we are going to deal with in the coming many years. Governance of Mammon is put in place by states which, through so-called national interests, design security mechanisms such as police and military, also create a perverted education system that produces faithful elites to consciously or unconsciously promote the saving money. People like us, economists, are trained and designed to carry on that Mammon economy, not the other way around. I mean, people are very rare who are critical, like Stiglitz, the Nobel Prize winner, criticizing this system, but the main pundits of capitalism want to go that way, because the nutrition for capitalism is growth. Without growth, without limits, there is no capitalism. So repressive regimes, oligarchs, corporatocracies, that is companies around, corporations around the world, and dysfunctional democracies are mechanisms for protecting and maintaining Mammon economies. And institutions that are really in the foreground globally are like the International Monetary Fund, the World Trade Organization, OECD, and G20 countries. Now China is coming up. It's all about managing capital with an argument whether it should be privately or state managed. There's need for institutions that will bring human consumption into balance with Earth's natural systems. Provide everyone with the opportunity for healthy, dignified, and fulfilling life. That is our cry. So inequality, poverty, and middle class, we, as I said, these economists around the world, we have these two versions. Like the one who is Robert Lucas, a Nobel laureate for economics. He says, of the tendencies that are harmful to sound economic, the most seductive and, in my opinion, the most poisonous is to focus on questions of distribution. So he's refuting and he's refusing anybody who talks about distribution and equally sharing of resources around the world. For him, that is awkward. And he's not alone. He's actually the dominant economic pundits of the world. As long as the problems of the poor are not radically resolved by rejecting the absolute autonomy of markets and financial speculation, and by attacking the structural causes of inequality, no solution will be found for the world's problems, or for that matter, not to any problems. This is Pope Francis, a leader of the church, speaking of another way of doing things. One of the government laissez-faire preferring a pro-growth medicine to heal the ills of struggle middle class is Ken Moyles, founder of the CEO of Moyles and Company in the Davos. Would we better think of growth? So Davos, which is also a club of discussing this economic system, Mammon I call in the world, they talk about thinking of more growth is better than thinking about redistribution. The Leo founder of the American investment firm, Bridgewater Associates, suggested the key to reinvigorate the middle class was to create a favorable environment for making money. The animal spirits unleashing by stripping away regulation. So it is not to reduce, but to make more money. And in terms of Africa, I didn't want to go without mentioning about Africa. We are actually the field for everybody, for Japan, resources for India, for whatever other countries who are industrialized countries. Here in Africa, we are feeding the Mammon economy. Africa is providing raw materials to feed the Mammon economy. It is impoverished and will remain so as long as it does not liberate itself from the economy of Mammon. The elites of Africa and in other developing countries need to stop serving Mammon. The people of Africa and elsewhere need to rise and struggle against and fight the Mammon. So now we come then to the last part, which is towards an economy of life. The term economy of life is still not popular. Actually, the economy of life is post-capitalist term originating from the ecumenical movement. When we were discussing with the World Bank, IMF, when I was the World Council of Churches, they even didn't know that we were articulating economic justice matters because our issues don't go there. It is a child of the ecumenical movement that's for about 20 years studied the neoliberal economic globalization. So we came then with the Accra Confession by World Communion of Reformed Churches, the Agape process of the WCC, the Empire Study of the CWM, and many other manifestations against the Mammon economy. It was Bogo, Indonesia, at the Ecumenical Forum in 2020 by the World Council, 2012 by the World Council of Churches, that the term economy of life was coined when a statement on just financing economy of life was given. It was inspired by Luke 12:15, and Jesus said to them, "Take care, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. One's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Jesus also warned, you cannot serve both God and wealth in Luke 16:13, but we witness greed manifested dramatically in the financial and economic systems of our time, as we've mentioned. Participants saw an opportunity to discern together with churches and civil society how to devise a system that is not only sustainable, but that is just and moral. So, friends, we have a plethora of gatherings on the issue and statements and recommendations given by ecumenical bodies, including the 2012 on a new international financial and economic architecture, NIFEA, organized by the WCC, WCRC, CWM, and LDAF in Sao Paulo. Here a statement of international financial transformation for economy of life was given, and later an ecumenical panel came up with a plan of action. So publications on the subject included the Accra Confession, the Empire, and so forth. Many initiatives and theological reflections took place in church-related academia, consultations held with congregants, but the concept of economy of life is not yet known to the pundits of capitalism. This included also us and the KIFE and others. This is the challenge. So, and this vision of the economy of life spells out the rules of giving and receiving, of sharing and exchanging life in God's household of life, where contemporary economic theory and practice start from the fundamental assumption of scarcity. This vision based on the affirmation of the abundance is based on the affirmation of the abundance of life as a blessing from God, who provides enough for the needs of all. The vision is an expression of spiritual discernment with regard to the powers that dominate the economic realities of people's lives. It challenges the laws of the market and redirects economic activities towards serving the common good. It trusts the transformative energies of the Holy Spirit to realize the promise of life in all its fullness. An economy of life spells out the rules that are needed to sustain God's household of life and further the livelihood of people through processes of production, exchange, and distribution. It is also an expression of the concern for maintaining a relationship with the land and with the resources of nature that respects their regenerative needs. An economy of life responds primarily to people's needs for life in community rather than serving private interests and desires. However, life is more than survival and people entitlements to more than satisfaction of material needs. Therefore, an economy of life is concerned about justice, that is furthering right relationships in human community and interaction with nature. It values cooperation rather than competitive individual achievement and seeks to provide opportunity of productive work for all. It emphasizes participation of the people in decisions about production, distribution, and assesses the value of products on the basis, use, and sustainability rather than monetary gains in exchange. It seeks to build an economic order that respects human dignity, encourages solidarity, and mutually accountable and serves the good, the common good. So the criteria of this is to provide everyone with the opportunity for health, dignified and fulfilling life, bring human consumption to balance with Earth's natural systems, nurture relationships with strong, caring communities, and harness sound, rule-based market principles. Support an equitable, social, efficient allocation of resources, and respect the democratic processes of the people. The main question is whether churches are positioned to create an alliance with a wider civil society to sensitize the world on a need for an economy of life. The reason for the importance of churches is because capitalism is not just an economic or political phenomenon, but a religious one. They can be all forceful actors in civil society once they work with social movements like Jubilee 2000 movement, etc. Thank you very much.
Wow, Dr. Mashana, it's we who must thank you for your consummate clarity and what is powerful about this presentation, which I won't try to summarize because I think you communicated so clearly, is the way that you integrate from a critical perspective the theological problematization of the reality of the economic system and its mechanisms, where you combine, therefore, a description of both the social, political, cultural, military, social order that is constructed in service of this economy of mammon or death, and you immediately give us tools that are both theological and social and ethical for both understanding and moving on. I think it is very important. I'm going to just open this up for some questions, but first of all, some observations. You pointed out clearly the fact that an already existing world order of economic injustice was made worse by the COVID pandemic. And I think we have been working with the image that the COVID pandemic not only has it made this existing situation worse, but it has also given us the gift of revealing exactly how it works. But more alarmingly, many of us are noting that the COVID pandemic has also provided now a justification and a cover for the 1%, the powerful, and the social order that benefits from the economy of Mammon to further impose mechanisms that defend and promote the economy. So that, for instance, that for many people, the answer to the COVID crisis of great poverty and displacement and dislocation is more capitalism, to reuse tools like the foreign debt, to reuse tools like loans and mechanisms to strengthen and deepen, so that COVID not only has made things worse, not only shown what it is, but it is given a roadmap for, as the world is rising up to reject the economy of Mammon, it has given a roadmap to those that would defend it, even including with military might a roadmap of how to institute what Naomi Klein is now calling COVID capitalism, or again, this idea of the shock doctrine of being able to use any catastrophe or crisis to, in fact, make the root cause of that crisis sacralized, difficult to touch, and difficult to change. So I'd like your comment about the particular challenge now, that not only do we see what's going on as it getting worse, but the crisis itself is in fact allowing for, as the world people are rejecting the understanding of Mammon, the instruments to make it more deeply rooted are being provided by the COVID crisis itself. The other thing is to stress part of what has always impressed me about your work, and you indicate this with Pope Francis's remarks, is that we would be well advised in our struggle for social justice to see how key the economic structure is as the core of the oppressions that we face. So not only with patriarchy, but particularly with the ecological crisis. Or as Naomi Klein once again has said, we have to face that our problem with the ecological crisis isn't carbon, but capitalism. So I wonder if you would help us in the reactions in saying, as we're attempting to discern, struggle to change the economic system must be a priority for all those in the ecumenical community that would change this world order so that life could be abundant, and that our particular challenges now, as we are coping with the ravages of COVID, it in fact is going to be used to make resistance to capitalism even more difficult. I wonder if you would privilege us with a reaction to my comments, and then we'll move to questions from others.
Thank you, Chris. I think you raised quite fundamental questions. How people use the pandemic today. You see, during the pandemic, there are people benefiting out of the pandemic. And there are people who are showing that during the pandemic, it's like a rupture in the system when capitalism was working on the principle of the law of the diminishing returns. So the more you lose, the more you want to get more, and you are given fear that you are going to be bankrupt. And therefore, that kind of feeling, which gives you uncertainty all the time, reaches a point even in history where somebody has to look for a crisis in order to start all over again. I remember, the whole breaking up of the world wars, etc., etc., the rupture of the depression, the great recession, the 1930s, all these things, they wanted a rupture somewhere. You remember, this is not only the COVID-19, but you remember the Spanish flu, also where I think more than 500 million people are infected around the world and about 50 million died. And that was the time again to restart again something. So it's like capitalism likes crisis in order to survive. There's a local example here where when we are going to crowded buses, this is where the pockets want crowded buses in order to do a good job of pickpocketing. So the capitalism needs these things. COVID is an opportunity now for capitalism to disappear, because the other principle is that normally capitalism or the current system works in a principle of being anonymous. the more you become anonymous, but you are being exploited. This is what they want. So now they are diverging our attention to COVID-19 as the culprit and not itself as a problem. And this is where we are going to have to unmask this kind of deceit, which is brought by capitalism. And today, I think this kind of deceit has to be consistently saying, yes, it has come COVID, but it is, as you correctly said, it has simply intensified the ills of capitalism we had before. And therefore, I think the solidarity we are going to show, we have to continuously, among the movements, the social movements, raise the banner of the alternative economies. And there are a number of them around the world. We have people, already intellectuals, talking about degrowth methods and theories, where people who are talking about the general, the GDP of what they don't call GDP, but they call this as the measure for happiness. So people are questioning now the quality of life. That level of understanding, that level of education need to be upfront. But what I'm posing here, Chris, is we have interpreted this in so many ways. We have raised this as member churches. And like a long time ago when Marx said, the way to change an apple is to eat it. So we have interpreted so long, we have to change it. How do we start to change, to design strategies for change, now that we understand what are the criteria and what are the components of economy of life today? How do we make this be popularized around the world? It is through activating social movements, indigenous communities in our areas, followed by intellectuals who are articulating those things like the Klein you are talking about and others. That work has still not yet been intensified. World Social Forum has tried something, but it has disappeared. We need to go a little bit deeper. So the next webinars, I assume KIFE will have to let us really articulate the challenges that come with it and how we deal with them when we are talking about alternatives to capitalism. In fact, it is post-capitalism we are talking about. It's not socialism we knew, no communism we knew. We are talking about post-capitalism era. Is it possible to draw a picture and use the economy of life now as a post-capitalist ideological driven theory, for which even the Bible, the theologians, sociologists, economists will then fall into?
So you're really pressing us helpfully. I see at least three questions that have come in on the chat, and I'll give these three to you and give you a brief chance to respond, and we'll collect a few more. One from Samuel Poby is, what system or systems did the Sao Paulo statement in 2013 propose to address this issue of wealth distribution, and how practical is it? So this is your question about what is it we need to do and what is it that we are proposing? Can we truly have a society of equal wealth distribution, or is this an illusion, although worth pursuing? We also have a question from Dina Bandu, thanking you for your presentation, but also noting that you said in your towards the end that capitalism is a religious phenomena, and ask you to elaborate on this further and to comment on the dangers posed by religion to the contemporary culture of greed. And I see also in the chat a question from Andrea Fulling. Dear Rugati, you mentioned the human being being reduced to economic function. I see this happening to a stronger degree for people on the move during the corona pandemics. with borders even being more excluding than they already are. People on the move have become more vulnerable. Could you share with us what role you would like faith communities to play to safeguard an economy of life? And why don't I continue with the other question? Much of the presentation was a critique of capitalism, says Anzu Lee, an economic system of death. I wish we could have spent more time in actually talking about exploring the economy of life. And then why don't we give you a chance to respond to some of those questions? And I'll add the two more while we're at it, because they're all going in the same direction, asking fundamental questions. If the pandemic advantages the capitalist, how do we overthrow the system at the same time? And then from Luciano Kovac, how do we broaden participation of social movements in this transformative collective? So people are taking up your call for fundamental questions of how we move from our analysis to actually making this work. And I hope you've taken note of those questions, Ragati, and I'll give you a chance to respond to them as a cluster.
Okay. Thank you very much, the people who are participating in this and asking questions. The first one on the Sao Paulo, they had recommendations of what need to be done, what the governments need to be doing that in order to change this, the system of capitalism. The major thing there was basically they are rejecting the whole system of the financial and economic architecture we have inherited as human beings. They rejected. They said this is not God-given system, and the theologians will all talk about the oikos, what God talks about economy, whereby everybody will actually have a flourishing life and enjoy life. They said this is no. And then they said, as you know, this has to be a place where there must be another system. And then they had proposals of what should be done in the financial sector, how they should stop it from speculation, and how the production should be designed in such a way that it safeguards the environment, and consumption, which is supposed to be not for greed, but only not for wants, but for need. So these proposals were given there for the Sao Paulo statement. Then, as I correctly said, thereafter, a global ecumenical panel was appointed to take that statement into much more practical, actionable, or actions for the churches, what the churches can be doing locally and what they can do globally, jointly with the United Nations and other functions for the global change. So those actions were very, very specific, like how you deal with speculation, how you deal with the deregulation of financial markets, what the churches can do to create advocacy work to do these kind of things, how to link up finance and real economy, which means you should not use your money just to speculate. If you take your money, give it to a lady in order to buy chicken, to increase more chicken for food, that money is used meaningfully, and it's called a lubricant for the economy, and not the money that you put into the speculation and you create phantom wealth. So that's how they approached these kind of activities. So the statement when was also picked even much seriously by the Council for World Mission, to even call their church leaders and theologians to learn deeper on how to do this. And I think those were the very first efforts, very consistently following the Sao Paulo statement. I recommend that people should read that very, very interesting statement. And then you see what can be picked up by the social movement also there and work jointly with the churches. Then I have the other question is, can we have a system of distribution of resources or is that an illusion? That is the question. You know, even before, everything was seen as an illusion. You know, most of the time people, when it was an illusion that Africans would have been independent, had their own countries. That by that time, those colonialists who were here ruling us, for them it was an illusion. It is not, we have put a good system with structures in place, and it won't be otherwise. The same thing with these structures. If you read, I'm an economist, if you start reading, we started with Aristotle and Plato there, but there are several others, the new classical economists like Marshall, Adam Smith, who started, for him, economics was just creation of wealth of nations. Marshall came up and said, no, that is not only that. We need something more, social welfare system. We need life more than just that. And others came again and said, no, it's an issue of scarcity and things like that. No, we need to discuss this more. Structures were built based on the first theory. The second theory found Scandinavian countries which built their countries on the social welfare, the Keynesian system, in order to balance capital and the people and social capital, and things worked. But there was a lot of struggle and people movements to do that. It is not a blueprint, actually. It is practice and people's practice that creates that. I mean, for those who have gone through the history of struggles of France, even to form what we call today the structure of a government, we have a parliament, we have executive, we have judiciary, all this republic. People take for granted, but it was some people who struggled in order to form another different system apart from feudalism. You see? So what I'm saying here, this is a vision for which you want to build blocks toward that vision. When Martin Luther King said, I had a dream, a vision whereby I walk hand in hand with and walk on the street with the white and black, very friendly. That's the vision, and it's still there. And it cannot be, once you call, my friend, a vision is an illusion, then we have started to lose already on the struggle. That is what I wanted to say to answer in that question. I have been fighting this since I was young for almost 40 years now, and I still believe the young people will pick up, but eventually I know that capitalism, with the way it is going, is not sustainable. It can even create its own Armageddon. And by that time, it will come like COVID, people are not prepared. So it's better to start to work right now. I think the elements and the criteria I put there for economy of life, they are actually doable. Many of them are doable. How is it possible that the local communities, indigenous people, and so forth can live such a life and it should not be globalized? It can be globalized if we have what you call the political will and spirit. The question by Bandu, when I call this capitalism that has got this religious phenomenon, I think Chris will help me there, because this is also an idea where when you go to Wall Street, those are the altars of capitalism. Those are the altars. Spirituality is right there. You want to win, you do this 1, 2, 3, 4, and next time you sweat, and sometimes some of them get, you get a lot. There's a lot of spirituality inside. So the question that I was showing this, it's, you are fighting a demon. You are fighting Mammon, you are like fighting a demon. And therefore it is a religious fight. Like in the Bible, I say it's not fighting only the physical body, but the spirit behind, the powers of the darkness and so forth. That's what I meant there, Bantu. And Bantu knows very well, I think it's just pulling me a leg there. I think this is what I'm talking about. It is a place where we should see that it is also economics is a matter of faith. We have mentioned it many, many times. It is rebuilding God's oikos, and therefore it becomes very much a religious issue. We had another one on, we had been discussing more about capitalism than alternatives. This is what I was saying, that we could have designed a system, but the topic which was given, which was we decided this time was, let us not worship Mammon, but economy of life. The question is, the understanding of Mammon is understood as economy of life by others. So you have first of all to demonstrate that what they have there is not an economy of life. The excitement they get by getting more is not an economy of life. This critique has to be there. I used to call, when I was in the Council of World and the World Council of Churches, that whenever we approach any problem, we have to have its critique, clarity, and alternatives. So we look at it and you critique it. And then we clarify what does this mean in terms of putting on alternatives. Then you come to alternatives part. So I left this other part because for me it is not too much going into that, because alternatives are not blueprint and theoretical things that come out of a desk. They are more of a praxis and conversation and dialogue with the people on the movements who create things. So what we can simply say are the elements and the vision of what we want to have. But I would really, as I recommended at the end, I need more of our next webinars on the survey on the alternatives, and then we discuss about them and the movements.
Rogati, thank you very much. There are several other questions, but as we're winding up, I mean, I think they go to hearing your call for how to take the alternatives more seriously with more study and so on. I think people are wondering if also you do have a word for us around Luciano's question about more involvement with social movements, about what actually we need to be doing in terms of the management of our own wealth, groups like CWM that has quite a large number of investments. There's also questions really about changing the system and what the role of the ecumenical movement is. If in one, like you invited me to introduce you more shortly, if you wanted to leave us with what you saw the principal challenge of what we need to be mobilizing to do now, what would you say in your shortest answer?
I would first of all speak about living the alternative already. I mean, we really have to be seriously living out the alternative, because now when you come to the point where you say, now we know, so we live the alternative. We have to have advocacy intensified, and we have to increase our issues of talking to power. Because sometimes we have left the power out there, and this is why they don't know whether we are talking about the economy of life. So I will start first of all, the mobilizing of living alternatives. We start as churches, movements, young people. And the second is to have advocates, strong one, and then where we even talk to power about these issues.
So you're really, I think that all the questions also go to this thing, and great thanks to you, is that we know now from your presentation that we are well equipped to understand what is afflicting us. And what you have pointed out is that our deep understanding and our value commitments have not translated into actually effective engagement of the powers that be to actually change and create these alternatives, to live them out. It's not a lack of ideas. It's not a lack of vision, as you put it, but that we have not sufficiently made this our clear transformative goal. And particularly taking Luciano's comment, if being in deep alliance with all those others who are working and moving for change. Ragati, we have to thank you profoundly. I don't know if you have another one word. It would have to be a 20-second word. But I would give you that word and then invite everybody to join me in thanks to you.
Yeah, I simply wanted to say that I'm glad we had to discuss this, but we need a whole debate about post-capitalism era as an issue and a theme for our future debates and discussion for alternatives. Should be post-capitalism era.
Post-capitalism, moving beyond living under empire and actually living in a new age.
Yes.
Could everybody use their screen to make a visual expression of great thanks to Rogate? And you continue to nurture us and lead us, my brother. We are very, very thankful.
Thank you very much.
I don't know, I believe, is it Yusuf Kum or others, are there other announcements that we need to make as we move towards our closure?
Yes, just simple announcement. Tomorrow, we will have another webinar at the same time by Professor Alan Bosak. The theme is quite timely themed, Christian faith in the context of fascism. So please join us tomorrow too.
And we greet Alan here, who has been joining us as well. So we're looking forward, Alan, to your prophetic word tomorrow. Thank you very much. Everybody, please make that commitment. And I now, and you can also look at various web pages and so on to realize we have not only tomorrow, but many other subsequent seminars. And we hope that, as Rogati said, that these are actually moving us towards engagement and change, transformative ecumenism, not simply understanding the world, but changing it through God's grace and accompaniment. I saw the closing prayer before me, but now it has disappeared. There we are. Could we join together in seeking the power and strength of God's transforming presence? Let us pray. God of wisdom, we thank you for reminding us about the meaning of the world and our place in the world of confusion. We are grateful to you for being with us in our webinars and for guiding our thoughts and deliberations. We pray that you will bless the remaining webinars and all those who are involved. In Jesus' name, together we say, Amen. Thanks to those who have organized and those who spoke, and we see on the screen possibility of future. I see many friends. I hope you will let others know about this. Special greeting to Michael Blair in Canada, who I see, Archbishop Julio Muray from in Panama, people all over the world, as well as our many African and Asian friends. So this has been a rich blessings, and go in peace as we gather again tomorrow to continue our quest for transformational change. Thank you.
Thank you.